spinning and spinning. And as we continue to load and welcome folks into the stream slowly but surely, I am going to take it upon myself, Thomas, to inform you of a very important thing that happened in my life yesterday. My daughter just started volleyball. All right. I'm a huge volleyball star, all that fun stuff. Her
Yep.
team, they got the color orange, right? They got
Nice.
bright orange jerseys. So it came to team suggestions. My daughter, the Orange Crush. That took it over, folks. So her
Nice.
volleyball team for this whole fall is going to be the Orange Crush. Why? Because it's football season here in
Sure.
Broncos country, and that's what we are talking about tonight. We've got a jam-packed show led by some Hall of Fame news, some training camp news, joint practice with the Los Angeles Rams, who are in town to take on your Denver Broncos this Saturday. We've got a lot to get to, but before we get to it, I'm your host, Luke Patterson. Join with me, as always, is my guy, my friend, my brother. You know him, you love him, Thomas Hall. What's going on, buddy?
Oh, not much. Just basking in the glory of finally getting seeing Randy Gradishar get into the Hall of Fame. So it's been a good week, a good day for sure for Broncos country.
Yeah, Tom gets to take laps. Broncos country gets to take laps. And most importantly, Randy Gradishar gets to take at least a little bit of a premature victory lap. Now, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of it, but he was elected as a finalist, right, for the Pro
Yep.
Football Hall of Fame. They have some details to lock up, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the show, but he's got a foot in the door. It sounds like things are heading in the right direction, and all credit to Tom because I was upset. I threw a hissy fit, to be honest, with everybody last Wednesday over Mike Shanahan getting snubbed. I do not get it. Now, I'm still upset about it. I'm bitter. I don't like the people over there at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but it does feel good to get that good news today.
Yeah. And the nice thing too, really, it doesn't matter if you go in first ballot or you go in your 35th year waiting. You're
That's
in,
true.
and you're always in forever.
No one
And
remembers which ballot you went into,
yeah,
right?
it's fortunate enough that he's, at a point in his life that he's still healthy, still can enjoy it, and his family can enjoy it. So we're all excited. There was a lot of work that went into helping. I mean, a lot of people put in a lot of effort to try and keep his awareness up. So, kudos go out to a lot of
Including
those folks.
yourself, Tom, including yourself. You do not like to beat your own drum, but I will do that for you, man. You Legends a Mile High every Friday morning, folks. That's where a lot of this support and campaign and everything like that for Randy Gradishar, I don't want to say necessarily got started, but it took momentum and helped push it forward. So you should check that out. It's one of Thomas's other projects here at MHH. I mean, you got lots of projects. You got MHI, you've got Legends, you've got Orange and Blue View on Saturday night. Tom's a very popular guy, just like our guy Dylan Von Arks, another popular guy, one of our own over at Mile High Huddle, saying, "What up, Broncos country?" Make sure you hit that like button on the way in. Please share on all platforms and subscribe if you have not done so already. Dylan was at the game against the 49ers last weekend, in case nobody knew. I'm sure everybody knows by now. It's old news. But it's cool, man. It's cool when you get boots on the ground like that. So shout out to Dylan. You can check out Dylan's latest work over at milehighhuddle.com. And David, man, David. We know that David's going to show up and show out every Wednesday night on MHI. Before the show even gets started, our guy's in here, Tom, 30 minutes early with a $10 super saying, "Good evening, Broncos country. Luke, Tom, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. I'm happy to see that Randy Gradishar is on the Senior Hall of Fame list. It's about time. Hashtag 12 and 5, MHH for life, Buckham, and Denver Broncos for life." David, happy that Randy Gradishar finally is getting some respect put on that name.
Yeah, finally, and I know that it's still kind of, there's one step left, right? They have to have the voters kind of confirm what the senior committee says with an 80% vote. It has been a very long time since a Hall of Famer that made it to the finals didn't get voted in. It used to happen, but they all know now that there's a lot of deserving seniors waiting that need to get in. They can't do that anymore. It's at this point, it's kind of a rubber stamp. So you can pretty much assure yourself that Randy's getting in, even though there's one final step. So it's still time to rejoice, even though you got to wait for a little while for the official word. But yeah, it's great news.
Yeah, it's horrible that they make them wait. It's horrible that they make these guys jump through hoops, if you will, because of that waiting process. I don't understand it. Not going to pretend to know it, but it's frustrating for a lot of the fan base that's looking at an active season. And I've said it before. I think these things would be better off not during training camp, not during the preseason. I think like towards the dead periods of the year, of the calendar year, if you will, where active football isn't happening, this would be a more appropriate place for it. And I think that the NFL could definitely do things better. The Pro Football Hall of Fame could do things better. But you could read all about Broncos legend Randy Gradishar making it into the Hall of Fame as a finalist so far. Still just a little bit more to come. You can read about that over at milehighhuddle.com. Thomas has an article up headlining our publication right now.
Yeah, and I can go on and on about why he deserves it, but we all know why he deserves it. He should have been in a long time ago. So it's it's one of those things where it's just finally kind of a relief for his family too. And you could see when it was nice that they invited him to go to practice, step up to the podium, speak about it. You could see it was important to him, and many people don't they don't want to talk to him leading up to the process, because it is hard for these folks to get almost there and then be snubbed that, in the final step. So it's great to see that he can talk about it and kind of relax, and he and his family can enjoy it.
Yeah, he can exhale, but it bothers me that he still has to wait. I mean, good Lord, give the man his jacket and get him sized up for the bust right now. We know he's going in. Lawrence coming in with some support. What's up, man? It's good to see Larry in the house, a supporter since day one of this very show. What's up, guys? I couldn't pass up this game. The tension is high, so I'll be there this game.
Nice.
Oh, man. Lawrence is talking about the Rams. Lawrence is going to the Rams preseason finale here in the Mile High City, the only preseason game in Denver and the final one. Thank goodness, as the Broncos host the Los Angeles Rams, who are in town and had day one, I would say, of a 2-day practice. That's speculation, but we're expecting them to practice tomorrow. We're going to get into some of that tension that Lawrence was referencing here in just a little bit. But before we do, our guy Michael Rinquillo coming in and relieving some tension with all of his support. Good evening, Thomas and Luke on the Mile High Insiders. Go Broncos and buck 'em. Thank you, Michael. Hopefully all is well out there in AZ.
I'm looking forward to the game. The preseason is meaningless for the score and a lot of other things, but it's not meaningless for these folks that are on the roster bubble. And you can see who may make it, who may not. I mean, you watch those games and you see who pops, and that's what's fun for me. Is I've been talking about Alex Palczewski since back in May, and now everybody's like, he can make the team. Yeah, it's because he's been out there working his tail off, playing good in camp, playing good in preseason, and here he is on the cusp of maybe making the team. So this last game is when those folks kind of separate themselves or fall back into the pack and end up looking for a job.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is a huge opportunity for so many guys, and you've got to make the most of it. And it doesn't just happen in that final preseason game. It happens in these joint practices. It's one of the reasons I'm so upset that, limited media and they say sponsored fans. I mean, it's corporate BS. That's who's out there. It's business, folks. Don't ever forget it. But man, this is the best week of training camp, joint practices. I got to be credentialed for the Cowboys last year, and it was awesome to see some live rounds, if you will. We're going to get into some of that a little bit later in the show. But before we do, I got to get to our guy, Troy, who just came in, coming in hot with the $9.99 super. What's up, Troy? Hey, guys, I am happy for Randy Gradishar. Was a kid in 77. Happy with the Mike Purcell deal as well. I expect the Rams offense to be fine-tuning plays they have run for years and to be ahead of the Broncos, who are still learning what new plays will work. Troy coming in with some good news, right, that we just received a few hours ago, Thomas, that defensive lineman Mike Purcell had a contract restructure, which pretty much indicates, at least it's pointing those fingers, that he's going to make this 53-man roster. What do you make of Mike Purcell? We don't know what the hell's wrong with him. It's been the deepest, darkest secret over there at Centura Health Training Center. And for whatever reason, the Broncos feel good enough about him to restructure his deal and at least lead us to speculate that Mike Purcell will be on this team.
Well, he provides good depth, right? He provides experience, depth, and the problem is he just can't stay healthy lately. So that's been his biggest problem. But when he's healthy, he can play football on the defensive line really well. And so I think they were looking towards that because I think they knew that they didn't have a lot of experience depth. They've got their starters pretty much lined out from my perspective. You've got Zach Allen, you got DJ Jones, you got Jonathan Harris. Those guys are going to start. Purcell's going to, and it will probably help Purcell stay more healthy is if he doesn't have to play as many snaps. So he'll come in the rotation. The only problem I have with it, and it's not really a problem, it's actually a good problem to have, I guess, is people who like Elijah Garcia, who was out there balling in preseason, maybe on the outside looking in now that Purcell's not going to start the season on the NFI list, right? He's now activated. He can't go onto that list anymore. He's either making the roster or not. And that's the only bummer that I see, because there were a couple defensive linemen, young ones, up and comers that I liked, Garcia being one, and Jordan Jackson was having a very solid preseason.
Yeah, they get another opportunity tomorrow, right? I mean, we'll
Yep.
talk about practice here in just a second. I want to make sure I get to all of our folks, our gentlemen and our ladies, including Jasmine, saying hello. And Jasmine has been a huge supporter of the show. And a huge shout out to Michaela Israel. Congratulations on the promotion. Well done. We love to hear and share each other's success on this show every Wednesday night. So it's cool to see the chat ripping and roaring, right? And constantly showing love, because it's one thing to disagree with us about football, but we celebrate life all the time, and we welcome that here on our chat streams. Troy, I love it, man. I'm happy for you. I'm happy that Broncos country's pumped about Randy Gradishar, and I'm thrilled that football is finally back, and there's some good news this week for Broncos country. Speaking of good news, our guy Keith coming in with some good news, always showing some love and support. A dear friend of the show saying, my guys, Thomas and Luke, could a guy like Albert Okwuegbunam be traded for a seventh or any other players you could see for late round picks? Keith, it's funny you mentioned this, because this is what I wanted to talk about based on what I've read, reports, tweets, what have you, about joint practice with the Rams today. It sounded like Albert O was a world beater today, Thomas. I don't know what you saw, but I'm seeing out there that he was a red zone nightmare, catching 2-3 touchdowns even. It made me immediately think, was this a mismatch, or did something break down with the Rams defense? Or is Sean Payton going to try to flash this young player for one last game to try to get some value out of him? Because based off of what you and I saw and what Keith saw out there at training camp, and Michaela and all the rest of our friends here on MHI, we know that it's the Troutman Greg Dulcich show. And Chris Manhurst, folks, I know he's a blocker, but I'm telling you, he can catch some balls too. And Sean Payton likes those unsuspecting targets.
Yeah, well, he's actually just all of a sudden taken off. I mean, you and I were out at camp. Alberto did not look very good. He didn't look that great in the first preseason game. He really came around in this last preseason game, and now he's on fire. So I don't know what to make of it. I think it's
Too
good.
late?
It's a good problem to have, but I don't know if him all of a sudden coming on is going to kind of outweigh all the stuff that he had done prior, or lack of stuff that he'd done prior. I don't know. They might, if he comes out and he really lights it up in preseason and they have no real idea of keeping him, they may shop him. And I thought they would to begin with, try to shop him for a little bit. But yeah, it's one of those things where he's catching fire now, and maybe he catches interests of other teams.
Speaking of other teams, we've got a new Bronco in the house. Oh, hang on real quick. Before we do that, let's get into one of our MVPs, Gary Leeds Palmer. GLP, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Always coming in. We can count on Gary no matter what for love and support. Just stepping in to say congratulations to Randy Gradishar and give a thumbs up to Thomas Hall for all of his support. I couldn't say that any louder myself. Go Broncos, Gary. Yeah, Tom is a huge component in trying to get some momentum, trying to generate some support. And I mean, just look at that beautiful hoodie he's wearing. We all love Tom Nalen, right? Well, Tom's namesake, right? Tom Nalen. No, nothing like that. Tom's just trying to generate some support. So maybe one day you can see some momentum for your favorite Bronco get into Canton. And I appreciate that, Gary. I know Tom does as well, man. Thanks for the love.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I mean, there's other people that worked a heck of a lot harder than I did for Randy Gradishar. You know, the fan of the year that was on Legends of Mile High, Ron Katz, put a lot of effort for the last 4 years trying to really raise awareness and doing it the right way. And, you know, go back and check out that podcast. It was a few weeks ago where he came on the show and we talked about it. And remember, when you do want to create some sort of buzz or get attention for somebody that you think should be in the Hall of Fame, and you're tweeting at these voters and stuff, you know, make sure you're being respectful, because if you're not, it's a turnoff. People, you know, humans have the same, you know, that's human nature. That you say that, oh, you guys are idiots for not putting so and so in. It's gonna be offensive.
That's right, for not voting Mike Shanahan into the Hall of Fame,
But
Thomas.
then
like
the next
100%.
time you're like, well, that guy said something about my, you know, about me, so I don't really care if I put a Bronco in. So just, you know, be respectful is all I have to say.
Did you hear Adam Schefter go off last week? That was funny
I missed it
on the fan. Yeah, man, it was pretty good. Like he was talking to Stink, man, and Evans, I think, and he just ran on a rant. It was good. I mean, you rarely get an Adam Raw moment like that, and anytime you do, man, it's gold to get Adam Schefter all fired up. You know who gets us fired up? Our guy Phil McLaughlin coming in hot, saying, "Good evening, Luke Thomas and Deacon Scott. I'm happy about Randy Gradishar. Are we pleased about signing?" I'm going to butcher this name. Tumasi Laluli. Did I? Maybe. Hashtag Buckham. Go Broncos. Phil referencing the Broncos' newest defensive line edition. You can read about him over at milehighhuddle.com. It sounds like this cat came over from the 49ers, Thomas. They released the long snapper, Jack Lander, to somehow get this cat here. He's undrafted out of BYU. 6'3", 300 pounds. He's got some decent numbers in college, but it looks like a journeyman when it comes to professional football. What do you know about this cat? Because I'll be honest, I don't know a thing about him.
I don't know much about him either. Really, he came in as an undrafted college free agent in 2018. He's kind of bounced around, probably been on a few practice squads. They must have liked what they saw because he was out on the field with the 49ers against the Broncos in their preseason game. And when he became available, they're like, let's snatch him up. But I think it is another body to keep some of this defensive linemen fresh. They're going to play him in preseason, play him a little bit in camp. Give some of these guys a rest. He might make the practice squad, but I don't see him making the actual 53-man roster. He just doesn't have the experience. He doesn't have what it takes at this point to do that.
Well, and I referenced he's played professional football. You notice how I didn't say NFL. He played in the USFL and the XFL. He's gotten some looks over the years, but has yet to get that NFL game action. So how do we feel about him, Phil? He's a complete unknown, and he has a huge opportunity in these joint practices and even this preseason finale. I mean, there's a reason he's here, and it's not just to be a body for the O-line to try to whip up on. Let's see here. Got Lawrence coming in here with a get paid, Lawrence. Yeah, I mean, anytime anybody can get paid. I hope. I'm trying to figure out what that's in reference to. Maybe the restructure, because if that's it, Mike Purcell got unpaid, right? I mean, he probably took a little lesser of a deal to be with the Broncos, and maybe that's a huge congratulations to Michaela and all of her success that she's been sharing on MHI. So that's awesome. Speaking of success, our guy Michael Brinquillo is a huge part of our success, and he saw a successful player, as did we all, this preseason and at training camp. Running back Jaleel McLaughlin could go from homeless to small college football school to the Denver Broncos 53-man roster. Great story from the life of running back Jaleel McLaughlin. That's just it, Michael. You hit it, man. Thomas and I were high on this guy since day one of training camp out there. And this is a man whose production speaks for itself. It's always fascinating to me when you get a jolt of energy and a lightning rod running back like Jaleel McLaughlin. He's been described as Philip Lindsay with hands by our good friend Matt Waldman. And it's just it's fascinating because for his size, Thomas, as you know, he's constantly cutting inward and upwards, and it throws defenders off guard. It's a natural, raw, explosive element to McLaughlin's game.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen him a couple times in preseason where he was pushing the pile, even though he's a small guy. I mean, he's it's effort, right? It's effort and having good balance and pushing the pile with your legs. You don't have to be huge to do it, but you've got to have the want to, and he does, right? And it was curious. You and I both were like, why is this guy the sixth running back on the depth chart? We saw it. He was the third best running back in camp. We all saw it. It wasn't just us. Other people witnessed it. And for him to come out as the sixth man and it possible that they wanted to try and like hide him a little bit and maybe sneak him on the practice squad. But after those preseason games, there's no sneaking him onto the practice squad. He's made the roster. And I actually enjoy watching him, because he has the speed, he has the quickness, he has the agility, but he also has that mentality that you want on your team. He went out there, kickoff return. He went out there and running back went out there as a receiver. He did everything that the coaches asked, and he may not have looked incredible at it. I mean, obviously fumbled, bobbled that one kickoff that was real short, but he came back and continued to do it. So that's what you want on this team, whether he's an undrafted rookie free agent or a 10-year vet. You want somebody that's out there working their tail off to win.
Well, and he's prepared, bottom line. I mean, coming in as a young guy, learning not only an NFL offense, but the NFL offense, Sean Payton, I'm sure that's complex. I'm not saying it's the best offense in the league, but I'm just saying there were probably some easier offenses to learn on other teams for some different rookies. So for this guy to come in and be prepared, like you said, he's got poise. I mean, that's what you were describing. He knows the situation. He's an intelligent player, and Sean Payton loves that. Zebulon coming in. I wanted to get to this. It's being said that the Denver Broncos are a top team interested in Colts running back Jonathan Taylor. Have you guys heard of this? Cecil said it. I'll have to ask Cecil about it. I'll have to go bang on his door about 500 feet from me and see if this is true. No, I just don't know. Like, what are you going to give up for Jonathan Taylor? Because it sounds like, Mr. Drunk Jim Irsay over there in Indianapolis is just digging in, and he's not going to settle for anything less than first rounders in these big expensive draft hauls, and that's not happening, Broncos country. We just did that twice for Russell Wilson and to get Sean Payton here. So that's not to say that there aren't rumblings. I haven't heard that, but I would be shocked if the Broncos went in on an expensive running back right now when Javonte Williams is looking fantastic. Samaje Perine, Broncos country, you're going to be in love with Samaje Perine. I'm telling you right now, this man is an absolute dog. And we just got done talking about Jaleel McLaughlin. So Zebulon, it could be true, man. Maybe Cecil knows something we don't. He's definitely more plugged in than I am, but I would have to poke around and find out.
I mean, you can't deny Cecil. I mean, if he's saying that they're interested, then they probably are. But I'm interested in a Ferrari too, but it doesn't mean I can go out and buy one. So
bingo.
That's the thing,
Who's not interested in Jonathan Taylor, right? I mean, like everybody's probably calling just to see what's the price tag. I'm sure that's how it goes over there, right? At Centura Health Training Center. Sean Payton's sitting in his office and he goes, George. And then George comes running in from down the hall, right? And he goes, I need you to do me a solid and call Irsay out in Indy. And we got to figure out what that price tag is for that kid that's real pissed off. I mean, I'm sure that's kind of how it's going over there, right? I mean, we know that Sean Payton's pulling the strings, but George Payton's probably working the phones to at least figure out what the market is, right? Or the asking price.
Well, Irsay's going to mess it up. I mean, if he just is, right? I mean, he's going to ask way too much. No one's going to pay it. Jonathan Taylor's going to be disgruntled, and it's going to be a fiasco there in Indianapolis. And that's probably what's going to happen. I mean, there might be some teams that are willing to give up something for him, but from what it sounded like, Irsay's asking too much. I mean, it's just the way it is. So I think it's going to be a kind of a fiasco out there.
Yeah, it's a mess, man. It's interesting. We're fixing to find out, as Gary Kubiak once said. Yep. Phil McLaughlin. All right, man. I teased it. We're finally going to get to it. We're a half hour into MHI every Wednesday night where you could find Thomas Hall and yours truly at 6 p.m. Mountain. All right, Phil. Stetson Bennett was balling today. I'm also kind of glad to hear that Damari Mathis showed some attitude. And while I can't speak to Stetson Bennett, I heard some of those rumblings, and I see all the preseason love being shown to the 60-year-old rookie coming out of the NFL draft. But Damari Mathis, man, that was something I wanted to talk about. Apparently, he had a very physical play and moment with Rams wide receiver Van Jefferson, in which he kind of body slammed Van Jefferson, and it started a little bit of a fight. And I don't know if that's something I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, you got to absolutely do that. But I'm not surprised that it happened. This is joint practice. If these guys are going to rough players up, it's probably going to happen now. There's such thing as old frontier justice, and maybe that rears its ugly head tomorrow, or it already has. But there were some light scuffles today. Feels right. Nothing to get in a twist about, but these guys are sick of it. They're tired of camp, and they've got a lot of pride on the line right now. Right. I mean, the Broncos are hosting this team. This is a new mentality. This isn't just we're sharing the field. It's, yeah, we invited this team here so we can improve, we can get better and play with pride.
Well, and it's a second-year player who's going out there not backing down, right? He's that's great.
Bingo.
I mean, cornerbacks have to have some attitude, and whether it grates on you or not, you got to be confident. And for a second-year guy to kind of do that, that gives me the impression that he's ready to make that next step into that starting role, full-fledged. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to kick some tail this year. And that's what people are hoping for from Damari Mathis. He showed a lot of signs of being a good cornerback, but now he's got to take that next step. And that's promising. Now, getting into a big fight or whatever it was, a scuffle, I mean, that's either here or there, but it's good to see that he has that attitude, and that's what he needs.
I couldn't see if it happened, and something tells me it didn't, and maybe I'm just wrong, but Aaron Donald didn't practice today, did he? Because then there would have been a fight for sure. I promise you that. I mean, it's just the man plays football so he can fight. And say what you want about Quinn Miners, Cushenberry, and Bennett, right? Big Bennett Powers. This man don't play no games. And I think you would have seen the scuffle at least get there. Looks like Donald is expecting another child or a child with his wife per Scott. Yeah, so that's why there weren't too many fights. Now there were scuffles, right? Wide receivers, DBs, they get in scuffles. They don't get in fights unless we want to talk about the old school fights, right? You remember the Cortland Finnegan versus Andre Johnson, Houston Texans, and those were some fights. This wasn't Emmanuel Sanders versus Cortland Sutton throwing water bottles. I was there for that. I was like 10 feet away while Joe Flacco just watched the whole thing. It was ridiculous. But I do remember being a kid watching Cortland Finnegan and Andre Johnson from the Houston Texans just go at it, man. I mean, some of those fights got pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. As long as I kind of look at it, if they're fighting with the other team, okay. Fighting amongst yourselves is probably not as great as I mean, some people like to see fights or whatever, but fighting amongst yourselves is a sign of frustration, which is not a good thing. But when you get a little frustrated with the other team, nice.
Yeah, that's okay, right? Yeah. Well, and they'll be all right. Everybody will be all right as long as there's, what you can do, right? And I guess I'm not going to go into what's an NFL fight because it's not really a fight. I mean, most times it's a little pushing, a little shoving, and it always looks worse than it is, right? It's a temper tantrum for a quick moment, and we all have those. But no, man, you've been doing some radio here in Denver. I've been doing some radio here in Denver, and I hear a lot of guys on the Denver radio talking about this training camp. This team is soft because guys aren't out here fighting. We don't have Bradley Chubb versus Garrett Bowles. And who are the alpha dogs? And I'm just thinking, man, this is a team that's been policing themselves. They've been empowered by this coaching staff for when these little scrums have happened at training camp internally, the players are the ones that break it up. It's not the coaches, a bunch of little guys running in there to try to break up these big monsters. And there aren't ever fists being thrown either. I mean, so I don't quite subscribe to the notion of just because there aren't fights at training camp, that doesn't mean that it's a weak training camp. And it doesn't necessarily mean nothing's wrong. It's just each training camp has its own identity. And I think the theme for this training camp with the Broncos, it's been education and humility, period.
Well, just I had a pushback on that. It's weak. Mentally tough. Right. That's just more of a sign of mentally tough where you can keep your composure. But then you go look and watch Albert O, who's been accused of being weak, has been out there pancaking people in preseason game last week. So you've got mental toughness and you've got physical toughness. I would never say that most of these NFL players aren't physically tough, but if they're not out there fighting all the time, that's more of a sign of mental toughness, keeping your composure, doing the right thing, going out there and play, next play, getting your retribution so that you're not getting in trouble, right? That's where I kind of lean. Fights will happen. It happens all the time. It just is. People get frustrated. These guys are banging into each other, play in, play out, trying to push, somebody against their will in the other direction. Tempers can flare, but if there's a lot of fights going on amongst this team, that's a sign of, in my opinion, of mental issue, right? Like they don't have that mental.
You got mental problems, man. Yeah, sometimes, right? And I think what you're looking for is just frustration too, right? I mean, so many times, like I know it, I've been guilty of it throughout my entire life. Like if I'm frustrated and there's an outburst, after 5 minutes, you're like, man, that outburst was ridiculous. I probably shouldn't have done that. I mean, why'd that happen? Oh, a combination of things, right? Emotion, frustration. But if you can remove at least the frustration element of it, things are generally going to go your way. It's interesting, man. It's interesting to hear. I guess as the last week of training camp officially ramps up or concludes, rather, they'll have practice tomorrow, the Rams and the Denver Broncos, for day 2. We'll see how it goes, man. Sean Payton had said he was really eager to see how his team would bounce back because the overwhelming reports out there on X or social media or whatever we got to call it these days is that the Broncos got the short end of the stick, if you will. Rams sort of won the day, and I hate saying that because I wasn't there and I couldn't see it, but it was practice. I don't know how you win practice, first of all. I mean, there are days where the offense is certainly doing a little bit better than the defense, but practice usually is geared a lot more towards the offense, and it's a little easier for the defense when their system's a little bit more established as opposed to Sean Payton coming in with a brand new offense. So the Rams won the day. That's a horrible sign for the Broncos. Russell Wilson looked horrible. Jerry Jeudy was out there dropping balls. I mean, let's not go freaking out just yet. It was day 1 of a 2-day practice.
Yeah, we'll find out more tomorrow. Maybe the Broncos win the day tomorrow and everything's right with the world. But, that's the point of practice. You hopefully get the things out that you don't want to come out in the game, right? You get those mistakes taken care of, try a few new things, and hopefully you don't do the same mistakes in the game when it counts. So I'm not worried about it. It happens. Last year, like you said, the Cowboys got the Broncos got the better of the Cowboys, and then they went out and stung it up all season. So it's
hard to judge it. I mean,
it's practice.
Yeah, we talking about practice. Yeah, we really are, AI. I mean, like, imagine where we would be if Allen Iverson never said that. We talking about practice. I mean, like, seriously, the man should be a GOAT for just saying that, no matter what he did in his basketball career, which were all great things. Look, man, it's so tough. It's so tough to just try to generalize this team after a summer, after a spring, an off-season workout program. We see spurts, right? And I think that we saw some good progressions the other night against the San Francisco 49ers, and you see a team that's not rolling over. I can appreciate that. And guess what? Teams are going to score on the Denver Broncos, and the Denver Broncos are going to score on other teams too. We're seeing a competitive brand of football in the preseason, right? 2 games all within a 1-point margin. I mean, I get it. It's the preseason. They don't count. They do matter, and the fan base would rather win it. But nobody's talking about the Baltimore Ravens and what was that preseason winning streak up until the other night in the regular season. It's all about the playoffs and Lamar, right? I mean, it's going to be those same sort of circumstances and conversations happening in less than 2 weeks when the Raiders come to town. And I, for one, can't wait for that game because I think the rivalry is going to be renewed. I really do. I think that Sean Payton is going to get after it with this football team, and he's going to let everybody know that the Raiders and that hatred are back, at least at Centura Health Training Center. And he's a guy that likes to plant his flag, and I can't wait for Raider Week, dude. It's coming.
Yeah. Well, and it's nice that he's embracing it. I mean, people were were turned off when it was with Hackett up there, like, "Oh yeah, I don't care about the rivalry." You should, just for the fans' sakes, for crying out loud. I mean, we know there's a rivalry. It's been going on since 1960. Come on, and I know the Broncos have not gotten the better of the Raiders lately, and it's not as competitive as it has been in the past. However, it's still a rivalry and it should be embraced. It will help the team. It will help fans enjoy it more. Don't downplay it, embrace it. And I'm glad he is.
Embrace it. And that leads me into Ashish, who's been very active in the chat tonight. Appreciate you rocking with us on MHI on Wednesday night. Will Russell Wilson play much better than last season? And can Sean Payton get the best out of him? That's the billion-dollar question. I hope they beat the Kansas City Chiefs and the Raiders this year. And that's what I said, Ashish. I mean, that's the minimum for me right now. I think that you beat the streak with the Chiefs. You snap that little ugly streak that we all forget about with the Raiders as well. And you split with the Chargers. And so, right, that's a 3-3 in the AFC West. That's not necessarily the best scenario when you look at the playoffs in the long picture of things, but it's possible. All right. And when you start thinking about it, you're like, you could go 3-3 in the division and then things could get a little interesting. It's going to be competitive. We know that. I'm not going to go as far as saying Russell Wilson's fixed, but I've been talking about it all training camp, being out there. I talked about it on the Denver airwaves last week. Russell Wilson has been severely humbled, and that's to a good thing. He is one of the guys right now out there at training camp. He's not pretending to be somebody. He's got his head down and he's straight up grinding. He's straight up working. That's not to say he's not making mistakes. That's not to say he can't play better. But it's just really a good sign for me when you see that, Russell Wilson at first glance this last summer appears to have gotten it. And that's the message Broncos country was hoping he'd pick up on this offseason when Sean Payton came to the Denver Broncos.
Well, he already looks a little bit better. I mean, when it comes to his play, I know that you can look at the box score on the 49ers preseason game, and it doesn't look great. He looks better. He looks more mobile. He looks like he's ready to play. They're not going to go out there and they're not going to go show their hand of how their game plan is going to be in their preseason game. But you can take little bits and pieces of what he's been doing in camp and what he's been doing. I mean, for all reports, the last 2 weeks of camp, he has been just slinging it out there, been looking really good. So for people you look at 10 years of Russell Wilson of being basically an elite player at that quarterback position for most of that time. And now all of a sudden he had a bad year and then he's just totally washed. I don't really believe it. I know he's getting up there in age, but he's been relatively healthy. So if the line can give him some protection, they can run the ball. He's going to play well again. I think he's going to have a bounce back year. You and I both have talked about it. With a better coach, with a better game plan that fits him, things have to look up. If he can't play better this year, then it's time to move on from him. He will play better from my perspective with Sean Payton calling better plays that fit him better. He's going to play better. How much better is the big question? That's the big question. I think he's going to play better, but is he going to be an elite quarterback again? That's the big question.
I don't really care, to be honest with you. I don't care if he's going to be elite, and I don't care if that pisses Broncos country off. I care if he's a winning quarterback, period. At the end of the day, you don't need to lead the league in MVP votes. You don't need to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer at the end of the day. You don't need to be in the Pro Bowl. We don't need any of that crap. We need some winning football, and all that rest of the stuff, that'll figure itself out, man. He's already got a Super Bowl ring. He's been to 2. He's got all the accolades, the trophies, the records, fastest quarterback to 100 wins. I mean, come on, man. His resume, it speaks for itself. But you're seeing a confident player that looks like he's trying to have some fun out there again. And when your quarterback is arguably the hardest worker out there, the team is growing to not only respect him, but trust him. They're gaining trust with each other. Jerry Jeudy had a bad day today, Tom, from what it sounds like. It sounds like he was dropping passes. Coach Sean Payton talked about it a little bit. He's like, well, receivers are paid to catch, not specifically to Jeudy because everyone's too afraid to ask Coach a hard question. But it's just like, look, man, Russ isn't chewing Jerry Jeudy out. He has a little something to say to him at the end of the play, and they try to get back in gear. That's nice to see because Russ is trying to be himself. He's trying to build with his team instead of build above it.
Yeah. I would imagine that, and I can't speak for him, but I would imagine that he would prefer to have another Super Bowl ring opposed to an MVP season. If he has a good season and they win the Super Bowl, I think he's plenty happy with that. And I think fans would be extremely happy with that. I mean, individual awards are great, but in the end, it's a team game. And he's going out there and working hard. He's going out there doing everything that's asked of him. And he's, like you said, he's won the team over. He's becoming a leader, and hopefully this team can play significantly better than what we've seen in the last few years.
Yeah, and they're confident with Russ. Russ is their guy. And that's not just showmanship. That's not just saying it. And I'm not saying there are a bunch of remember the Titans moments down there where it's just romance and beauty and this team is just falling in love and they're going to play for each other and rah, rah, rah. No, but they're out there grinding together. They're working together. They're living together. You're starting to see the chemistry in the work. We're going to see those ROIs. They're coming. We just got to be a little bit patient. And in 2 weeks, we're going to start seeing some of that stuff.
Yep.
Phil McLaughlin coming back in for some more support. Thanks, Phil. Guys, I've got 3 players I think that are on the bubble.
Yes.
Marquez Callaway, Tremont Smith, and Kendall Hinton. Your thoughts? Yeah, Kendall Hinton to me does not make this team. Maybe you can stash him on the practice squad again, and that goes probably the same with the other 2 as well. Montreal Washington has been getting a lot of momentum, and it's about time, right? I mean, he was in trouble there that first week of camp, but the last few weeks he's looked decent. He's looked dynamic in the return game at times. And I've seen some really good plays from him on offense. So I think Montreal getting a good look. Now, he was banged up today, I guess, for just a second. He had his own guy run into him on a punt return and hurt one of his hands, but then he was able to catch a punt the next play later. So I don't think it was anything too significant. That was, again, today practice with the Rams. What do you make of Phil's 3 guys on the bubble?
It's interesting. All 3 of these guys were much higher on the depth chart before this training camp started, and they've all been passed significantly by other.
That is interesting.
Tremont Smith to me was, I thought, going to be the 4th cornerback coming in. He has experience. They went out and got him in free agency. He is struggling to make this team, and I don't think he's going to make it, which is a surprise because he has a lot of experience. What's that?
Saying Bassey, right? I mean, he's been making it a hard case for a guy like, Tremont to get anything going when you've got other guys that, and they're holding out Riley Moss. He's going to make this. Yep. They're going to figure out a way. He's not going anywhere. I mean, Riley Moss is going to be on this team. We just talked about Damari Mathis. We haven't even got to my guy, Jaquan McMillan. I've wrote about him. I like him too. Now he gets beat, sure, but it's a lot of competition. So to your point, those are 3 guys that have all been passed up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think of these 3, the one with the best chance is Callaway, just because the injuries to the wide receiver core, and he has that experience, the familiarity with the Saints system. You might see them err on the side of caution, keeping an experienced guy instead of going with one of these young guys who doesn't have experience in the NFL. But as far as I'm concerned, Tremont Smith and Kendall Hinton are fighting for their roster lives, and I don't think they make it, and which is a surprise for me for Smith. I think Callaway sneaks on as the 6th wide receiver, even though he may have been a little bit outplayed by a younger guy. They're just going to err on the side of caution.
How about our guy, Brandon Johnson? He's back, right? We're back. To quote VJ, right? He's getting back into some action soon, hopefully for the Denver Broncos. I really like this cat a lot, man. Mims, he's looking really good. I mean, that wide receiver room, it's tough. And they brought in that new cat, right? I don't even know his name. Yeah. He's over at milehuddle.com. I mean, they're bringing guys in so last minute, but it's for a reason. And I mean, no disrespect. It's just, good Lord. I mean, there's so many men on this team. We've got to try to figure out who's making it. And how weird is this? I was talking with my dad about it last night, and he was like, do you remember back in the day when they would, you'd have to ramp up to win the 53-man roster would come out. So 90 to 60 and then 60 to, or what have you. That's really not the case anymore, right? No. So, I mean, they go from having this army of players to just 53 guys, and then you've got 16, 17 practice squad
16
players. I mean, it's a new time, and that funky little thing that happened in 2020 all kind of changed everything with the veteran guys that can be on practice squad and all of it.
Well, and it was nice for some of the veteran players with that initial cut down. If you knew that they weren't going to make the team, you would cut them, early so they could catch on somewhere else. Like a Tremont Smith might have been, from what I see, he might have been one of those initial cuts so he could go grab on to another team, but that's not happening anymore. So it is a mad scramble at the end where you're cutting people, staying and looking for other cuts. And then, so there's people that can't breathe a sigh of relief when that cut down day happens, because they may be bringing in someone from another team who recently cut somebody and they don't make it. So I don't know. It's a mad scramble. I kind of liked it. I kind of like that slower cut down. I
Me
appreciate
too.
it a little bit more because like I said, you gave vets a little bit of an opportunity to catch on, and you kind of saw the team take shape. It was kind of fun
Yeah.
as a fan, but oh well.
No, I hear you. It's always changing, right? And then Robert Saleh on the Jets. We don't want to show guys be humiliated, and it's like, oh man, all right. I mean, say what you will about it, but I mean, you know what you're signing up for. It's not like you don't know that HBO's there. They've been there all summer. I mean, you guys say you didn't want it, but it's amazing how the Jets have just fallen in love with being on HBO, even though they didn't want them there in the first place. Albert Knoppers always here for us on Wednesday nights, saying that Russell Wilson not only looks better, he's much faster in the run and in playmaking. It doesn't take 5 seconds like last year before action happens. And Albert's picking up what Sean Payton's throwing down. And it's a fast and furious offense. I mean, he is forcing Russell Wilson to make quick decisions. It's nothing groundbreaking out there, folks. It's simple high-low reads. Jerry Jeudy's usually the number one option. That's the Sean Payton offense, and we're going to see that. And I can't wait to see the run game, because I think a lot of people think Sean Payton has been really, really trying to cheap us all out on what the offense is going to look like passing. I think the run game is going to look even more dynamic, and you're going to see a whole lot of different looks. I mean, last week at camp, we were talking about Greg Dulcich. I mean, maybe potentially moving in as a wide receiver to block on some plays in the slot. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with the Sean Payton offense, but this is why Russell Wilson losing 15 pounds is a big deal. Albert's right. You can see him. The mobility is better. The footwork in the pocket is much better. Now, still has some happy feet, and I don't blame him because he gets a lot of pressure from the left side. But Russell Wilson settling down. I completely agree with Albert. You could see some of the fruits of his labor, at least in the offseason.
I think that Sean Payton's going to scheme receivers open much quicker than Russell had last year. I mean, it seemed like it took forever to get somebody open, and maybe that was partially because Russell Wilson wasn't seeing them, but it was a mess. And I think you're going to see, like you said, quick hitters, to these wide receivers, give the playmakers the opportunity to make a play with the ball in their hands, right? Don't let Russell Wilson sit back there for an hour waiting for something big to happen, someone to come open. Get the ball out, get the playmakers the ball, and let's see what they can do. Because I'm looking for yards after catch for Jerry Jeudy big time this year. I actually expect him to be one of the leaders in yards after catch.
let's pump those brakes, because I want to push back against that just a little, because I brought up Jerry Jeudy too. I mean, he's been a dog in camp, but he's also dropped a lot of passes in camp. He's dropped some in the preseason. I mean, drops in Jerry Jeudy have been synonymous for his pro football career, and I'm not trying to get after the guy, but one thing I do like with Sean Payton is we're seeing that when Jerry Jeudy, whether it be in training camp or preseason, and he drops the ball, he goes right back to him. That means Sean Payton is challenging this young man, and we've all had that coach, right? That gritty coach that isn't our best friend, but always gets the best out of us. And we always love, and they always love you back. We never say it, but that coach that gets the most out of you sometimes needs to challenge you. It's just like being a parent, right? Our job isn't to be your best friend. It's to be your dad or your mom, your guardian, what have you. And it's the same case for a Broncos play caller and a head coach. I like that Sean Payton is challenging Jerry Jeudy. I liked that he's challenging him at the microphone today, talking about receivers are paid to catch the ball. It's that simple. I mean, let's see how Jerry Jeudy responds tomorrow. I'm ready to see that.
Yeah, but you got to also think last year, Jerry Jeudy in a per target was one of the better wide receivers out. He just didn't get enough targets. When he gets the ball in his hands, yes, he may drop it. It's happened. But when he does get the ball in his hands, he is actually one of the better wide receivers as getting yards per target. So I actually think he's going to have a pretty darn good year after the ball is delivered to him, just because he has a dynamic ability. He has ability to shake people. He is one of the better route runners in the league. So if he can catch it, if he can grab that ball and not drop it and lose his confidence, I think he's going to have one of those fun years for fans. Fans will watch him and be like, wow, yeah, that guy really can do something with the ball in his hands.
Well, he's got to mentally mature too, if I'm being completely honest, because
Sure.
I heard a former Broncos receiver or tight end on the air today say, "Look, man, when I got balls thrown to me at practice, I considered them gifts, and there wasn't anything I wasn't willing to do to go get that." And we know Jerry Jeudy's a hard worker, but he also has taken a lot of plays off in his career, and that's one thing I haven't seen at training camp. I haven't seen a frustrated Jerry Jeudy quit on a play or not give it his all. He is working his tail off over there, and that's something you love to see. I like it. I like that Sean Payton is challenging this young man. Some fans, I guess, are a little sour that Russ isn't ripping him and nobody's ripping each other because Payton used to yell at everybody. And it's like, well, different men, different time, different team. I mean, I love Peyton Manning just as much as the next guy. I love that he's still here in the Mile High City. I love that you can see him on those dorky commercials with Peter Banko, Centura Health. I love all that stuff, right? But that time is done. 2015 is never coming back. And for too long, the Broncos have been hanging on to that dying dream that we could repeat 2015. No more. This team is discovering their identity as they go. They're not trying to jam feed it down your throat like Nathaniel Hackett did, like Vic Fangio did. I mean, this is just an organic work in progress. And nobody likes to see the house get built, Tom. Nobody.
Right.
We all just want to go see pictures of it on Zillow when it's all
Right.
painted up. You've got all the brand new appliances. No one wants to see what that sucker looks like with studs. Man, we're going to see what it looks like here in about 2 weeks because I think the finishing touches are just around the corner. This offense is going to start clicking.
And hopefully the leadership style is the right style for this team, right? That's what it matters. It doesn't, like, you can take a Bill Parcells approach and maybe that's the right approach for the specific team, but a good leader knows how to lead each of these people the way they want to be led. Not everybody wants to be yelled at. Not everybody responds to that, right? And then you also have to understand that everybody has a different leadership style. Russell Wilson is a different leadership style than Peyton Manning. It's the way it is. But if it's effective, that's what's important. It doesn't matter how it's delivered. It matters if it's effective or not. And if it's effective, we will see it on the field. You will see Jerry Jeudy out there being a different player than he was last year or the year before. So that's what matters to the results.
As you were saying that, something just struck me and it was so obvious. Is there anything that Russell Wilson could say to Jerry Jeudy that Sean Payton hasn't or wouldn't? No. Sean Payton is probably he's the buck stops with Sean Payton. If you think Sean Payton's just giving out orange slices and participation trophies over there, no, he's cutting guys the final week of camp. Or the night before joint practice, getting another D lineman in here, restructuring Mike Purcell. I mean, Sean Payton is not calling it quits. I thought it was hilarious before the 49ers game last week, Tom, when they were flying out there and somebody asked him, do you see light at the end of the tunnel now that camp is just about wrapped up? He's like, no, the tunnel's dark. What tunnel? There's no light. And I was just like, damn, coach isn't playing. And I absolutely love it. That's not to say he can't connect with his players. From everything I've heard, the guys are responding well to Sean Payton. They like his energy, they respect his work ethic, and they're getting to know each other, right? They're not just falling all over themselves. Oh, we love each other and everything's great. We're the best thing ever. No, they're actively getting to know each other, and that's okay. You're seeing things happen as they should. It's almost it's a case of nature, right? Nature is unfolding right now because of the hard work.
Well, and it's obvious how it's unfolding, right? I mean, people, like you said, are responding to it, but it's because he's telling them what they need to hear, right? He's putting in plays and offense, and he's putting in people in position how they need to be put in position, right? It's not the love, oh, we love each other, like you said, oh, we're all friends. No, sometimes you can't be their friend, but you put them in position to succeed because you know how to do it. You know what's best, even if that player doesn't know what's best for him. And that's where Nathaniel Hackett failed. He was too friendly. He was too much of a oh, well, you want to do it this way? Okay, he didn't understand that some
He's a
people can't
slappy.
get out of their
He's a
own way.
slappy.
Right? They can't get out of their own way. I want something, but maybe I'm not really that good at it, right? So maybe redirect me into a different career path or whatever it may be. But I think you're seeing the results on the field because you're seeing improvement from the very first day at camp to where we are now. You've seen some significant improvement. You've seen people buy in. You see the team come together. And like you said, the team is policing themselves. That is all part of the plan. It's coming together. Whether people think they're friendly with each other or not, it's a team, and they're going to go out there and win on the gridiron against other people who want to take that from them. And that's what matters, right? It's not about being a family and being a team, friends and all that. It's about winning on the football field.
Yeah, these guys don't need to love each other. And that's just it, man. Like, I get that there is a place for romance in this game. It's why we love it so much, right? Love, romance. Yeah, that's football, baby. But at the same time, I mean, these guys are a long way from winning anything. I mean, and they haven't. It's time to earn it. And you're seeing them work right now like they at least want it and want to earn it. And I hear you, Doug. Preseason games don't do anything for me. I trust me. A lot of people feel the same way. However, you've got to admit training camp and preseason has been totally different with Sean Payton. We could talk about the limited access. We could talk about what we can and can't report, to ticketed fans, to media sponsorship only days. I mean, guys running drill to drill, no more water breaks every 5 minutes. I mean, the list of change is endless. But it's nice to see, instead of just saying, hey, let's write down what our identity is. That's it. This is it. This is where our identity. We're determined. We're strong. We're tough. No, they're figuring those things out on the field. They're not just coming up with cliches to throw on a T-shirt. I buy into what this team is doing because of the work that they're putting on the field. And Michael, man, thank you so much for all the love and all the support. Great show tonight, Thomas and Luke on the Mile High Insiders. Go Broncos and buck 'em. And Mike, thank you so much, man. You and Broncos Country, you make this show so much fun. And I know it's one of the highlights of my week, Thomas, too. We're always talking about how we can make this show better, try to pick the brains of Broncos Country and figure some stuff out. And it's exciting, man. We've got a lot more cool stuff right around the corner here on this show. Ken Lanier, right? Thomas stopped by Friday morning with Ken and had a good conversation. I got to sit in on that as the official producer of that one, if you will. That was fantastic. Go check that out on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you guys get these podcasts. Thomas was on Mile High Sports Radio today, so you guys check that out. Head on over to @Thomas Hall NFL. Yours truly co-hosted another show on the Fan last week. You check that out at Luke Patterson LP. And we're rocking and rolling, man. I was super pumped to tell the team, these are going to be my writing assignments for this season because it's that time of year. I know we're talking, you've got some writing assignments for the season coming out, and we're all game planning as a team over at Mile High Huddle right now, ready for the meet and greet, trying to figure out what we can bring you. But this is going to be a really exciting 2023 for the whole team.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, it's we're finally, you and I have got this been going on for a little while, so it's fun. I look forward to it. We've got preview from almost every game coming out on Saturday. That's going to be fun. But like you said, we're getting more opportunities at other places too, like to learn. We're going to bring what we learned from the radio show we were on this week, bring it back here, and it's going to just improve. So I'm excited with where this show is going. I think it's I think there's a lot more that we're going to bring to you fans out there that is going to be informative and fun and a little different than what you're used to. So I'm excited, Luke. I look forward to it too, awesome. Every Wednesday.
Oh man, it's so awesome. Thomas and I talk about just every day almost, trying to talk football, trying to talk live. Reach on out to us. Give us a like on Facebook and YouTube also. Head on over to mhhmerch.com. Grab yourself a hat or a t-shirt. Get your swag on over at mhhmerch.com. Be sure you're following the mothership at Mile High Huddle. We'd also appreciate a follow on this pod. That's at MHI_pod. If you'd like to reach out to Thomas directly, please do so. That's at Thomas Hall NFL. Yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. And yeah, again, the mothership at Mile High Huddle. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com. Remember what our guy Dylan Von Ark says. Make sure you hit that share and like button on the pod on all platforms, and hit that like button on the way out. And remember, a little bit goes a long way, and it sure does, man. It's this show always goes so fast when we have so much news to get to. And the last little bit of news as we wrap up, Randy Gradishar taking that final-ish step into getting into Canton. We're celebrating that a little early because, well, we deserve it, and so does he. We're reacting to Broncos-Rams joint practice day number 1. Number 2 should be happening tomorrow with that preseason finale in Denver on Saturday night. And then how could I miss this? Drew Brees was at practice yesterday, Thomas. We didn't get to really talk about that, but it was cool to see Drew come out. Apparently he was visiting his brother who's out here in Centennial, and gave his old coach a ringer on the phone saying, "Hey, coach, can I come by practice? Come on out, Drew. The more the merrier." So Drew Brees was back. Speaking of we're back, Justin Simmons back on the field this week. That's fantastic to see, along with Mike McGlinchey. So I get the injury bug has been nasty for the Broncos in recent years, and some would say this summer, but happy to see Justin and Mike back out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see that they're healing up, right? I know there's some devastating season-ending injuries, but some of these nagging injuries are healing up, and it looks like they're going to be ready for the regular season, which is the important. I like preseason. I know people are, I know it doesn't matter, but I definitely like to see these roster bubble guys going out there and working their tails off to make the team. And that's what's fun for me. That's why I like preseason. I love watching these guys who nobody knows about out there, showing that they belong in the NFL. So I'm looking forward to this final preseason game, and I'm looking forward to the regular season. I think fans are going to be happier this year, a lot happier this year than they were the last few years.
You can get rid of those honeydew lists for Sunday. No more. The Broncos have competitive football. I'm telling you, it's going to be good. Rock with us for one more week. The preseason is over, but our coverage for the Broncos is never over. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com. Check out all of our work. And Pearl Heater, thank you so much for all the support over on Facebook, guys. We really appreciate all those Facebook stars. And thank you for all your lovely comments in the show as well. Thomas will be back on Friday morning for Legends, and then you can catch Thomas and Ron. Are you guys doing a pregame show Saturday or postgame?
We are doing pregame show. Pregame show, but Ron's out, so I think Lance Sanderson will be joining me for the pregame show. We're going to be bringing a lot of cool stuff, though, analytics and scheme matchups and players to watch. It's going to be fun. So get the deets for the game.
That'll be cool, man. Lance and Thomas, a new dynamic duo for Saturday night, at least against the Rams. We appreciate you guys so much. It was such an action-packed show. Thank you for stopping by. I will be out next Wednesday. I have a little bit of a vacation before the regular season comes in, so Thomas will have a co-host stepping in. Thank you guys for rocking with us. Broncos country, as always, this is the way.
This is the way.